Let's go. Time to grind, get inside your mind. Yeah, we working overtime. That's the only way to climb. We gon' make it in our prime. Signing on the dotted line, cashing checks left and right. That's the way I'm living life. I feel alive when I got a goal in sight. Chip away, I gotta fight. Ain't nobody else in sight. Man, I think I see the light. Yeah, that shit is so bright. Follow me, I got the guide. See you on the other side, son. Ain't nobody know what I've been through.
In the first fight on the main card, we have William Gomis taking on Yanis Ghemmouri, and in a featherweight bout. And for William Gomis, he's obviously already had 2 fights inside the UFC, and then Yanis Ghemmouri is making his UFC debut, and he was supposed to be taking on Caolán Loughran, who I think might have been a little bit more of a tough matchup, just because Loughran probably would have tried to really go for that KO TKO and possibly maybe tried to get some wrestling going in that one. But I just think overall on the feet, he would have been super aggressive, and I wasn't going to take Yanis Ghemmouri in that one. Now, I don't think William Gomis is necessarily the most aggressive fighter, but he is a lot more tactical. He has a pretty good striking defense inside the UFC. In his last one, he did get taken down twice, so he was unable to land any of his well, he didn't even go for a takedown, but he didn't even try to go for a takedown, but he did get taken down twice and defended 3 takedowns. Before that, in his UFC debut, he was able to get 3 takedowns, and then he won that via unanimous decision. So a low-volume fighter for 2 fights going decision, right? He wasn't really landing too much in those fights, but I think he is safe. I think he is tactical. We'll see whose wrestling is going to be the better one, right? If William Gomis can just light him up a little bit better on the feet, which I feel like is going to be the case. And then Gomis, if he can defend the takedowns, if Ghemmouri tries to grapple with him, I think he'll be okay there. He might even be the better wrestler. But yeah, I mean, change of opponent at that point, unfortunately, anything can happen. I mean, both guys weren't even training for each other. William Gomis is obviously going to be a hometown favorite in this one. He's from France, right? Fighting out of Paris, France, so he's definitely going to have the crowd behind him, whereas Yanis Ghemmouri, his previous opponent wasn't from Paris, France, so just a little bit of a different matchup, and then fighting someone who's already had fights in the UFC could be a little bit jarring maybe. But at the same time, even for William Gomis, right, taking on a newcomer, he's got to be careful to not let this one get away from him. Because at the same time, we've seen people come out of other organizations and they fight differently. They're hyped up, they're ready to go. And then when you have a change of opponent, sometimes this makes people even more hyped up, because then they really want to show like, hey, I got to get that finish or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, I like I said, I think Gomis just, in my opinion, looks a little bit more tactical. And, I don't expect him to get a finish here, but I do expect him to win a pretty good decision. So, I'm going to go William Gomis to defeat Yanis Ghemmouri. I'll take him to win by a decision. In the third fight on the main card, we have Volkan Oezdemir, 18-7, taking on Bogdan Guskov, 14-2 in a light heavyweight bout. So for Oezdemir, veteran in the heavyweight division, light heavyweight division, coming off of a loss against Nikita Krylov, pretty much just got out-grappled. Before that, he was able to defend 15 takedowns from Paul Craig, showed that like he's not absolutely garbage with the wrestling defensively, and he ends up getting his own takedown as well in that fight. Pretty much just shut down Paul Craig and put him away. Craig really wasn't setting up those takedowns like Nikita Krylov was doing, and I think it just shows you that Nikita Krylov was a better grappler. Before that, he ends up losing to Magomed Ankalaev. Gets dropped once in that fight, gets taken down once, loses on the significant strikes. Before that, he gets taken out by Yuri Prochazka, KO TKO in round number 2. Was actually doing fairly decent until I think he just kind of gassed himself out, and Prochazka was just able to kind of just fire back with some of the shots. And we see Oezdemir kind of leave himself exposed when he starts getting really aggressive with those hooks, and he can land some of those shots and put you down. But the problem is against someone who's faster, they're gonna fire back, they're gonna find the opening. And for Guskov, that's kind of what I'm thinking might happen here. Is he looks pretty fast. I know some of the fights on his record. The one guy he ends up losing to has the best record out of everyone that he's fought in the most recent amount of time. But he does look like he has fast hands, right? he's going to probably want to go after this early, take advantage of Oezdemir's ability to leave his chin open and see if he can get in there. I don't know if he's going to be brawling with him. I still feel like Guskov is going to look to kind of get him to counter, right? I think he wants to counter him. I don't think he's going to go in there and start swinging wildly. On top of that, Guskov might need to prepare some takedown defense or see what he can work in there, just because Oezdemir might, if he's not doing well on the feet, he might try to grapple with him. So he has to be careful there. But I just feel like this is one of those fights where you go with Oezdemir and you're like, oh, he's going to get him, right? He's going to take him out. And then, boom, he gets absolutely destroyed. So I'm not going to have that happen to me. So I'm going to go Bogdan Guskov to defeat Volkan Oezdemir. I'm going to take him to win by round 1, KO TKO. In the fourth fight on the main card, we have Benoit Saint-Denis, 11-1, taking on Thiago Moisés, 17-6, in a lightweight bout. So for this one, Moisés, he's going to go in for the grappling, right? He's going to try to take him down. I don't think he's going to have too much for him on the feet. I also trust in Saint-Denis to land the harder shots on the feet, to be the aggressor. We saw in his last fight against Ismail Bonfim. He was able to handle himself on the feet, but he was also able to control him on the floor, get 2 takedowns, and then he ends up landing the submission via rear naked choke. I don't think Saint-Denis is going to be able to submit Thiago Moisés, but I do think he might be able to finish him. For Thiago Moisés, he's coming off those 2 wins via rear naked choke, so we kind of know what his game plan is. He's not knocking people out, right? Against Joel Alvarez, he kind of got overwhelmed. He starts getting elbowed and all that, and then he ends up getting finished in round number 1. So I think that's kind of one of these things where Moisés might struggle to get Saint-Denis on the floor, right? And then when they're on the feet, Saint-Denis is going to be going after him, super aggressive, landing the harder shots, start teeing off on him. Maybe he lands his own elbows on him as well. I just think that's going to be enough for him to get it done. And especially too, if Moisés isn't able to get him, take him down, because that's the thing. If Saint-Denis had horrible takedown defense, or we didn't really see him get tested with the grappling or anything like that, I might be more inclined to be like, maybe Moisés is going to be able to take him down and then finish him. But because Saint-Denis himself has some pretty good wrestling, some good grappling, some good takedown defense, I think I'm confident in taking Saint-Denis, because he might not be the aggressor on the floor, but he'll be able to push him off and then keep fighting on the feet, be super aggressive, land the harder shots. And if he can just land a couple on Moisés, get him to start turtling up against the fence, I think he kind of just goes after. Maybe we see a classic Moisés where he jumps in. Not a classic, something that he would do, but we've seen fighters get hurt. They dive in for the takedown, pull off the guillotine, right? Or get a Darce choke. We saw that with kind of Max Holloway, where he decided to go in for the Darce choke. He didn't get it, but there's options. So I'm going to go with Benoit Saint-Denis to defeat Thiago Moisés. I'll take him to win by round 1, KO TKO. In the co-main event of the evening, we have Manon Fiorot taking on Rose Namajunas, 10-1 for Fiorot, and then 12-5 for Rose Namajunas in a women's flyweight bout. Namajunas is debuting in her flyweight bout here inside the UFC, I believe, and then she's taking on someone who's already in the flyweight division in Manon Fiorot. So this will be an interesting fight, because Rose Namajunas, she hasn't fought since last year of May 7th, so it's been over a year, where she just had not an entertaining fight against Carla Esparza, loses to her for the second time via split decision. Really just didn't get anything going. Esparza landed 2 takedowns. Striking was pretty similar. Nothing special. Like, again, like I said, she did defend 9 takedowns from Esparza, but it's like she didn't really do anything offensively for her own self. And I don't know if that was just because she was afraid to get taken down or whatever, but it just didn't really seem like either one really was going for anything. So that was unfortunate. Before that, she defeated Zhang Weili in the rematch via split decision. That was a pretty close fight. And then before that, obviously, she caught Zhang Weili via the kick, right? She puts her out. And then before that, she defeated Jessica Andrade in a rematch via split decision. I think she can outland her opponents. I think she definitely does well. Rose Namajunas setting things up too. Obviously, we saw that kick against Zhang Weili. She can handle the grappling, keep it pretty close in the striking exchanges. But then there's moments where she can get kind of crushed, right? I mean, we saw that against Jessica Andrade, and even against Zhang Weili the second time, it was a split decision. It wasn't like she, absolutely destroyed or whatever. And then against Carla Esparza, it was just like you didn't really see that going for the kill, or you didn't really see the willingness to go out there and like dominate her, or it was just weird, right? I felt like Rose Namajunas should have been able to get her and win that fight. And when you look at someone like Carla Esparza, right, she loses the next fight against Zhang Weili, who goes out there and just absolutely dominates her and kills her. She did get caught a little bit here and there, but she goes out there and pretty much dominates her. And that's kind of like what people, I think, were anticipating for Rose to do against Carla Esparza. It's just she wasn't, unfortunately, able to do that. And then I think for Rose Namajunas, she has a lot of emotions in the game, right? She always talks about her mental health and stuff like that. So we also don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. You know, how is she doing? I think she said she was kind of like contemplating retirement against Esparza. You know, that's never a good thing that you want to hear, especially when you're going in there and you're taking on someone who is undefeated in the UFC. Granted, she's not coming off of like knockouts or anything like that, but I do think she's coming off pretty good wins in her last 3 fights against Caitlin Chookagian. Manon Fiorot was able to defeat Caitlin Chookagian, who we kind of know is like the gatekeeper of that division, right? She finds a way to point fight. You know, she's not knocking anybody out, but she definitely point fights. She just knows how to get those victories. And Manon Fiorot was able to kind of outland her, 98 significant strikes to 76, get a takedown, and then also just land the harder shots. Before that, she defeated Jennifer Maia, unanimous decision. Mayra Bueno Silva, unanimous decision. We saw what happened, though, with her. We'll have to see how that plays out. Tabitha Ricci, and then Victoria Leonardo in her first 2 fights. She was able to get the KO TKO. So I think Manon Fiorot, for me, I think she can grapple, right? I don't know if she's going to try to do that right off the bat here. I think she has pretty good takedown defense as well. Will it be able to keep Namajunas at bay? Well, Namajunas kind of likes to fight that kickboxing style where she's at distance and stuff like that anyways. But I think for Manon Fiorot, if she can close the distance, and she can start landing good combinations, the difference will be that she's landing harder shots. I do think Manon Fiorot can get in close and start landing her own shots. We'll have to see who's better in the grappling. And the other thing, too, is, you know, we don't really know what we're getting from Namajunas, right? She might not be able to get off that volume that maybe some people are anticipating, right? Is she really going to be mentally in there? Like, there's so many more questions, I feel like, for Rose Namajunas than there is for Manon Fiorot, who's going to bring, you know, obviously she's undefeated in the UFC. This is kind of probably her, she's probably thinking like this is her opportunity to really get into that, top 3, go get in there, try to put her name in for the title fight. So she's going to go after it. And if Rose Namajunas isn't ready for that, if she's not ready for the aggression, if she's sitting back too much, she's a little bit gun shy or whatever. I'm not saying Rose Namajunas is not going to go out there and head kick her like twice and then put her down, right? I mean, that could happen. She could definitely take her out. She's very calculated. And her striking, I think, for Rose Namajunas is underrated. But the thing is, Manon Fiorot is going to go in there, bring the fight to her. She's going to be able to hit hard as well. So I think it'd be a good matchup for both of these these fighters, unless it's just lopsided and maybe Rose Namajunas looks better than she's ever looked, doesn't have to do the weight cut or whatever, or Manon Fiorot looks absolutely horrible, or she looks better than we've ever seen her before, and she goes out there motivated and takes out Namajunas. So I do think it's one of those fights where it might be one of those close striking battles as long as no one gets taken out. But I do like Manon Fiorot's volume, right? I think she's going to definitely go out there, try to land big shots, but keep it technical and pick her apart. And maybe, depending on who wins the grappling exchanges, maybe we see Manon Fiorot try to push her against the fence, control her like that. But I still think more so on the feet, she's going to want to close the distance and start trying to light her up, test her chin, and land the hardest shots on Namajunas. But like I said, with Namajunas, she's going to probably try to keep the fight a little bit of a distance, go for the kicks a lot, try to set some things up, and then she might be able to match her striking. So I do think it'll be a competitive bout, as long as no one gets knocked out or whatever early on. But it'll be interesting. This is definitely, whoever wins this is, and depending on how they win and how dominantly they win, is going to be in there for the flyweight, the women's flyweight championship soon. So we'll see how this one plays out. But for me, just because I think she's She's definitely undefeated inside the UFC. She beat Caitlin Chukagi. You know, she's got that winning behavior. I know she hasn't taken on everyone in the division yet and all that. I'm not saying that she's going to go out there and like knock her out, but I think maybe Manon Fiorot is going to make this fight a little bit more competitive than some might think. So I'm going to go Manon Fiorot to defeat Rose Namajunas. I'll take her to win by decision. In the main event of the evening, we have Ciryl Gane, 11-2, taking on Serghei Spivac, 16-3, in a heavyweight bout. So Gane is obviously coming off his loss, his title fight against Jon Jones, in which he was pretty much dominated inside of the wrestling to grappling, and then he was submitted. It really didn't have too much going there. I mean, he landed a couple shots on the feet, but it was nothing that seemed to bother Jon Jones, and then he just didn't really have an answer for the guillotine. Just showed the difference and the levels that there are for the grappling when it came to Jon Jones and Gane. Serghei Spivac is obviously going to come into this fight with some pretty good wins via getting his opponents to the ground and dominating them on the floor and getting 2 KO TKO wins, and then also getting in his last fight against Derek Lewis a submission via arm triangle in round number 1. The one thing I will say, though, is I don't think Spivac's grappling, wrestling, control is on the same level of Jon Jones. So I don't want to just rule out Gane right off the bat and say, you know, he's going to get absolutely dominated here, he's trash. Because I do think Gane obviously has been working on his grappling, his wrestling, his defensive wrestling. And people might say, well, it's not enough time for him to get better. And that may be true, but I think his eagerness to want to learn, and then also even on the feet, he needs to be more aggressive. Because I think if he just paces this fight for like 4 rounds, you know, one, the fans aren't gonna want to see that. Number 2, you're not really showing that you can beat anyone at that top level when it comes to like being a dominant like heavyweight, right? If you're just gonna pace yourself, I think he needs to go in here and just annihilate Serghei Spivac early on too. Maybe he can feel him out in that first round, see if he can defend a takedown or whatnot. But he needs to annihilate him pretty early. He can't sit here and just kick at him and, you know, land. He can't just land. Well, let me look at some of his fights. He can't just like kind of outstrike him 102 significant strikes to like 42 like Jairzinho Rosenstrike, because it's just not really going to do anything for him, right? It's not going to get anyone hyped about anything. Oh, he wins a unanimous decision. He's got to go in here and take people out if he wants to get into that title contention again. And for someone like Serghei Spivac, who, you know, I don't want to count him out either. Like, I don't think he's trash. But, you know, when you look at Derek Lewis, how does he lose fights? He gets taken down and dominated. Augusto Sakai, same kind of thing, right? He gets taken out on the floor. Greg Hardy obviously had 0 takedown. It is basically had 0 takedown defense. But he beats all 3 of those guys, and it's like, okay, that's pretty good, right? He showed against people that just cannot wrestle or grapple that he's way better than them. The issue here, though, is, like I said, I think Gane's far more dangerous on the feet. I think he can clip Serghei Spivac coming in, and not like Derek Lewis. We saw Gane versus Derek Lewis. Gane is far more tactical, right? He's not gonna just rush in and try to tee off on your head. Like he'll pick his shots and all that. And even against someone like Greg Hardy, obviously, in my opinion, was not at the caliber of a striker as Gane, right? So I didn't really look at those 3 fights as like, oh shit, like Spivak could have been caught in every one of those fights and lost, but he didn't, right? He was able to implement his game. But against Gane, like, I think Gane can frustrate him early on. I think Gane can probably keep him off of him. Maybe pull a Tom Aspinall, clip him, and then hurt him really badly, and then try to put him away like that. I would like to see Gane go for something like that. Like I said, just keeping a distance, kicking him, throwing the leg kicks, or engaging against the fence and just kind of like, I don't know. I just don't want to see Gane try to just pace himself against someone like Serghei Spivac. He's got to go in here and take his head off. And Spivak's got to get the fight to the ground, but I think it's gonna be hard for Spivac to go in there and grapple with him, right, and control him. I just think Gane's gonna hurt him pretty bad when he comes in, and Spivac, his whole game plan might go out the window. but we'll have to see what happens. Gane, if he wants to stay in the top, obviously he's going to have to make improvements via the wrestling, defensively, and just find ways to be, like I said, a little bit more aggressive, go for the kill, not just sit back and fight that point style fighting, because you could do that, but then we saw him fight Jon Jones, and it was like, okay, right? Like, look how simple that was to get him on the floor and take him out. Even against Francis Ngannou, who beat him via decision and got 4 takedowns in that fight. Like, it just, those 2 losses just didn't look clean, right? So yeah, I mean, he's gonna have to do something here, and I think he can. Like, I really do. I think he's motivated. I think he knows how he's gonna. If he's losing fights, we've kind of seen how he loses them, right? Gets taken down 4 times by Ngannou, gets taken down, submitted by Jon Jones. Like, we kind of know how Gane, his weaknesses and all that. It's not the stand-up. I mean, he's fighting a guy who's probably going to try to take him down. So hopefully Gane did his homework, and then hopefully Gane can come out here and do something pretty early on. So I'm going to go with Ciryl Gane to defeat Serghei Spivak. I'll take him to win by round 2 KO TKO. So that'll do, guys, for my UFC Paris main card predictions for the upcoming event. A couple fights fell out, switched opponents, all that stuff. We'll see how good of a card it is. Check down below for the rest of my predictions for the rest of the card. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.